Center petition, the moderate Democrats definitely want to stop Sanders, but they don't know who can do that. That means that Hillary Rodham Clinton established a relatively moderate Democrats and a more conservative Democrats with the power ties in the Democratic Party definitely wanted to do away with the Sanders radicalism because they believe that Sanders does not properly embody the fundamental values and the precepts established by the Democratic Foundation in modern U.S. history. That's their viewpoint. They just definitely cast a poll on them. Cast a poll. That means they just really want to suspend him and stop him by literally derail his campaign's progress, right? Because right now Sanders is rushing and racing to the destination he's been pursuing. But center position, those centrists, the moderate Democrats, couldn't stay with this radical vision projected by Sanders. Because from their perspective, Sanders is a danger factor that would only derange the identity of the party. That's not something they should stand up for the party's vision and tradition and convention. They simply want to stop him. They aspire to kneel him down and bring him down. But they don't really have a contestant compatible and qualified enough to wreak havoc on Sanders. That's a problem. Who to do that? Who to be powerful enough to remove him? Pete Buttigieg, he's a sexual minority. He's really the courageous obstacle, right? Otherwise, he would be definitely number one viable candidate. But his sexual orientation is a courageous obstacle, even though no one wants to admit that. One of his reporters just recently said that they were really. One of his reporter. His supporter said that she was really glad that no one was talking about his sexuality. But as he is gaining the momentum and the traction, then this would have definitely emerged its ugly face, right? No one can actually deny that. Once he would actually present himself as a viable candidate with electability, then everyone would be focusing on his sexual orientation and sexuality, right? This could have definitely reared its ugly face to haunt you. And Joe Biden, there is a certain corruption issue, and he's extremely unpopular with the youngsters. He just fails to fire up the younger voters. That's the problem. That's really a great chasm between Joe Biden and his former boss, Barack Obama, right? So they're just actually, in between a rock and a hard place. Because they don't really know who would be powerful enough to keep Sanders broken. There's no alternative to Sanders, technically. There is no one who has been firing them up. There should be someone who could energize the grassroots voters by bringing them out. But there is no candidate who could be entitled to do so. That's a dilemma and conundrum the Democrats should solve immediately. Otherwise, this could lead to a division in the party and the dissonance and dichotomy, because there could be someone who would argue that, yeah, Sanders is a longtime Democrat. We should serve him. We should support him. We should rally behind him. We should unify the party against a monstrous Donald Trump. Or there could be some folks out there. No, Sanders' belief would never represent the democratic ideas we cherish. He is a weirdo. Then there's an economy which could be beautifully plundered by Donald Trump. Wow, this is a golden opportunity. If you can actually heal the world to move beyond the past division, then this is just being an open invitation to Donald Trump. Donald Trump saying, oh, thank you, I'm going to use it beautifully. He just actually claimed that. Nancy Pelosi is just, staging an impeachment scene against Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders' hands were tied up with impeachment at the time. For that reason, he couldn't actually be in Iowa. And then, that's really the grandiose scheme by the Democratic establishment and foundation and convention, who would be so hostile to Bernie Sanders. That's what has been said. I remember that. That's really the reason why they're between in a rock and a hard place. This is Gordian's knot. Technically, this is a Hobbes. What do we actually call that? Hobson's choice, right? Because either of the choice is not their very best. It's not the very best that you would like to see. Standing behind Sanders to defeat Donald Trump? Or letting this, division go overboard? None of them would suit their taste. This is the definition of the Hobson choice. None of the options are that much valuable. Or, yeah. But in the ESL English, if you ever wanted to say that, it's better to say that. None of them, right? Yeah, I actually, saw them from different books. And in ESL English, if you're taking a test, none of them is normally preferred to be said. None of them is. But I saw that many American people truly actually said it in a textbook. Even from New York Times, none of them are good enough. Like this, none of them are angel. I saw them and I actually read them. But technically in the ESL language, it's been preferred and advised to use and none of them is. But I saw that in English and none of them are angel. None of them are really tasty and reasonable to be your choice. That means you're facing a Gordian knot, a very troublesome situation, the Hobson's choice. Is it Hobson's choice? Am I getting it correct? It's really Hobson's choice? The reins are tight. They have no option to say better. I wanna stop it. 이제 공부하러 갈게요. So it's really interesting. I just really want to actually listen to Rachel Maddow's podcast more because I actually stopped at the moment when she was about to reveal the very secret that no one actually told before. This is really interesting. Because so far, what has been actually featured because of this outrageous injustice carried out by William Barr to protect Roger Stone at the behest of Donald Trump, even though the Justice Department vehemently denied any commanding order given from Donald Trump, the only thing he actually had it done was just a mere tweet saying that this is a miscarriage of justice because, you know what, Roger Stone was underrepresented by the judicial branch, in which he actually completely manipulate the circumstantial evidence to damage him. That's what it's been said, or in a similar way. But, you know, witness intimidation is a serious felony charge. And he been already subject to perjury because he was allegedly lying under oath. When you actually, you know what, made a solemn oath saying that I will tell nothing but the truth, then you should speak the truth. Otherwise, you're going to be punished for that, right? You're going to be inculpated for lying. And there is also a charge accusing him of tampering with the evidence. Tampering means you actually, you know, rigged the system or rigged the evidence by changing the proofs. That could prove your guilt or inculpation or incrimination. Anything that might implicate your criminality, you just reshuffled them and reshuffled or even edited them in pursuit of your acquittal. That's what has been said. But if I ever actually, you know, explain this once more, technically before the Donald Trump administration, throughout the United States, this is a federal law. If you're a wrongdoer who's been convicted for a criminal charges, you've already actually been indicted and prosecuted, and you were found guilty for criminal charges on criminal counts. That means like murder or any grave felony charges, right? But the problem is, throughout the procedures, you had never been cooperative with law enforcement, including the prosecutors. You said that, oh no, I hadn't done anything wrong. Why in the world I would be facing this indictment? I hadn't done nothing wrong. What? That means you're constantly pleading. Constantly, you know, making a plea for your innocence. You would never admit your guilt, saying that, oh, I did something wrong. There was no concession to it throughout the entire procedure. Then you actually decided to go on a trial, saying that, I'm very confident. I can actually buy a defense lawyer who would advocate my case, and I can eventually be a man of freedom. I can be emancipated from this brutal indictment. But the thing is, you at the end of the day were found guilty. That means a judge behind the bench decided to strike out a guilty verdict. Then you had no option. Normally, the U.S. attorneys, who are really the state prosecutors, decided to provide a guidelines to the judge, who could have finally wield the gavel to deliver a verdict. That means a judge's judge's verdict would be influenced by the guidelines put out by prosecutors. Oh, this, moron lied to us. No, I can actually say this. This is a really hypothetical scenario. That's really the reason I said it would. Think about it. There is a judge who can immediately deliver a verdict to you, but, a judge would be informed of the fact that you're such a rebellious moron who would never confess anything to prosecutors by denying all the charges you have been accused of. If this story is known to a judge, thanks to the system of the guideline, then you as a culprit who just got convicted for what you had done could have faced hefty charges, right? Maximum imprisonment. This kind of a heavy burden is your reality. instead of negotiating with the prosecutors through a plea bargain, oh, I want to actually confess my wrongdoing, but can you be lenient and merciful to me by lowering and lessening the burden on me? Can you not actually give out, 5 year or more prison terms because I would admit my guilt? How about that? Can you actually, mitigate that? Can you actually adjust that for me? This kind of deal is normally called a plea bargain, right? But the problem is, if you actually refuse to do so throughout the procedure, then you actually audaciously try to go on a trial, to be tried, and to be prosecuted in public. And finally, the court decided to deliver a guilty verdict against your hopes, dashing against your hopes, really. Then the guideline would be issued from the U.S. attorneys to modulate the viewpoints of the judge, saying that this culprit had been very troublesome by denying all the charges and counts that he or she had been accused of. So we should actually teach him a lesson. There should be a punitive action to make amends for this rebellious behavior. Like this. This is really vindictive action from the prosecutorial enforcement. Right? If you're actually being an angel, you said, oh, I'm so sorry, I did this wrong, it's all my fault. Then the incrimination would be lessened. But the Donald Trump administration already obtained the reform as a reformative action. Already executed reform. That's a better expression. Donald Trump administration already executed a reform that would empower U.S. attorneys to issue the maximum punishment guideline in the case of the non-cooperative wrongdoers who would eventually be convicted. And what's been so interesting is, despite this reform conducted by the Donald Trump administration's Justice Department, right now, Attorney General William Barr went against the trend because he wanted to, that's what I said in case you didn't hear my voice, he wanted to revise the actual guideline in the view of minimizing the burden on Roger Stone. Because William Barr definitely aspired to minimize the sentence term levied on Roger Stone. From his perspective, Roger Stone should be spared from the maximum guideline that could punish him with the 6 or 7 year long prison sentence. This should be spared. That's his viewpoints. I don't know that's a voluntarily formed, because he could be easily influenced by his boss, President Donald Trump, right? So right now, that's really against the rule of law. So people are going out, and many prosecutors are making a walkout to go on a protest, right? This kind of intervention cannot be tolerated. That's so far what I know. And I have to actually read or listen to more of this conversation. It's been so interesting, because this is a modus operandi. Normally, it has been the convention. If you're less cooperative, if you're not actually partaking in the collaboration with the prosecutorial enforcement, once you were found guilty, and there comes a hefty price you need to pay, right? You would be charged with maximum prison sentence, or there should be a negative side effect coming from your resistance to cooperation, right?
Also, what has been said?